Alright, well, in this video, I'm going to talk about the Warriors getting their 73rd win, breaking the Bulls streak, also how it connects to Kobe Bryant's final game, also this film Money Monster that they kept showing in all of the commercials in both games. They've been showing it for a while now. For whatever the reason, I just decided to watch it, and it has a lot of significant things in it. Also, the Japanese earthquakes, I truly believe, have something to do. They're like a tribute to Kobe Bryant's final game and whatnot. So let's start off with the Golden State Warriors Memphis Grizzlies game. I'm not going to go into super detail. I talked about a lot of the stuff that happened in this game previously in the previous videos, and the same numbers came up. So look at the final score, 104 to 125. So anyway, if you add it up, you total up the score, it comes to 229. If you write out the word 229, it equals 101. Just like Philadelphia. Remember, the Warriors originally from Philadelphia. Kobe's also originally from Philadelphia. Kobe even tore his Achilles against the Golden State Warriors. Tons of other stuff. I think I mentioned it again later. 229 as a date. Also, the 60th day of the year, Kobe Bryant scores 60 points on his last game, the same night that the Warriors get the 73 wins. So anyway, I've been talking about this back-to-back theme that they've been running. They just mentioned back-to-back a lot. It goes back to the All-Star Week where Russell Westbrook won back-to-back All-Star Game MVPs and Zach LaVine won back-to-back slam dunk contests. And I mentioned how the number 125, the Golden State Warriors have only scored 125 points in 2 games this season. This just so happened to be the 3rd game, but the first time they did it was against the Chicago Bulls, the team that they're chasing, and it was on January 20th. They won 125 to 94. If you total that up, it equals 219. If you write out back-to-back championships, it equals 219. This game was also the game after they beat the Cavs by 34 points. 34 games after LeBron James shot 9 of 23. Anyway, Warriors win back-to-back championships in Gematria equals 314 the big way, 125 the small way. The second time that Golden State Warriors got 125 points was on Pi Day, 314. They won against, I believe, the Pelicans, 125 to 107. And that day was also 2 months and 19 days before the NBA Finals, just like back-to-back championships. Warriors win back-to-back championships equals just like the date. They score 125, even 2 months, 19 days before the finals began. It was also Steph Curry's 28th birthday, also the day of the Kansas train derailment. That is even connected to the 34 Kansas, the 34th state. It was leaving from Los Angeles and going to Chicago, of all places. I even talked about Russell Westbrook and Zach LaVine both being from UCLA. Amtrak in Gematria equals 222. UCLA equals 222 in English Gematria. So anyway, the score of the game on the Pi Day was 125-107. The total score 232, just like Kansas in Jewish Gematria. I also mentioned the 104 stuff previously. The Grizzlies ended up getting 104 points in this game. April 13th, the day that happened, just so happened to be the 104th day of the year. So the Grizzlies lose 104 points on the 104th day of the year. The Lakers lost to Portland this year on February 19th, 2/19, and it was 104 days before the NBA Finals began. Also, if you write out 125 equals 104. And I mean, in regards to this Portland game, they did lose, but the reason they lost was to foreshadow them getting Anderson Varejao, and there's a whole other story to that as well, but Portland dropped Anderson Varejao, and then 3 days later on 2/22, a lot like Amtrak, a lot like UCLA, the Warriors picked up Anderson Varejao, who wore number 18, and then they didn't play the Warriors for 18 more days. Tons of other stuff with it. But also in this game here, Golden State Warriors beat the Grizzlies. They became 73-9. The 131st prime is 739, a lot like their record. The word championship equals 131. Also, if you write out Grizzlies equals 131. Like I said, there's a whole lot more to it than this. These videos take so long, I'm trying to shorten them up a bit. So also in this game, they made it a big deal about Steph Curry getting to 400 three-pointers this season. He actually got to 402, but the big deal was that he was going for 400 and blah, 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 blah. He got the 400, and it gave them 73 points. They were going for the 73 wins to beat the Bulls. He made his 400th three-pointer, and it gave the Warriors 73 points. What are the odds of that? Even in the total score of his game or whatever, Curry ended up with 46 points in this game. Chicago equals 46. If you write out 400 threes in Gematria, it equals 92. Just like Warriors win back-to-back equals 92. And remember, in the previous game, they beat the Spurs, and they scored 92 points. If you write out 402 threes, it equals 267. We talked about how it's all connected back to this date, 9/23. Also, Pope Francis, because he came to the United States on this day, or the day before, which was his 923rd day as being the Pope, he went to the White House on this day at exactly 9:23 in the morning on 9/23. He's the 266th Pope. Last year, it was the 266th day of the year. If you just write out 400, it equals 134, also 62, but I want to stick to the 134 here. I've been seeing it a whole lot lately. There's been lots of different coded combinations of 1, 3, and 4, whether it's 134, 431. You know, all numbers you can rearrange to make pi. In this game, the Grizzlies and the Warriors just so happen to be on April 13th. In other parts of the world, they write it as this, 13/4, a lot like 134. The Kansas train wreck that happened on March 14th, it can also be written as 14-3. The Chester, Pennsylvania, train wreck had 341 passengers. And also in regards to Kobe Bryant, he announced his retirement with a poem called Dear Basketball. Dear Basketball in Jewish Gematria equals 341. The Warriors scored 125 points for the first time this year against the Bulls on 120. That was 134 days before the NBA Finals. It even says that there was 134,000 viewers of the Lakers game and 111,000 viewers of the Warriors game, which interesting because the first time that these two teams played each other this year, the Warriors scored 111, the Lakers scored 77, they won by 34, a number that I've talked about a whole lot in regards to Kobe tearing his Achilles against the Warriors. He did it when he was 34 years old. He even scored 34 points that game. He gave the Lakers their 43rd win, came back 34 weeks later. And there's more than that to the 34 stuff, but I want to move on here. So they kept showing this trailer to Money Monster. Like I said, I've noticed it. For whatever the reason, I actually watched the commercials the other night. But I mean, look, the movie is directed by Jodie Foster, which just sticks out. We just had the death of Nancy Reagan. Remember, John Hinckley Jr. was the guy who tried to assassinate her husband and whatnot. And he was obsessed with Jodie Foster. You know, tons of other stuff with it. Just wanted to point that out. It's directed by her. And, you know, I've talked a lot about Obama being assassinated or possibly Trump. Even if you go way back, I've talked about Pope Francis or maybe even Queen Elizabeth will die. But anyway, this movie, it's coming out on May 13th of 2016, which just so happens to be the 134th day of the year this year. And it can also be written as 13/5, a lot like 135. and I'll show you that in a little bit how that connects. But yesterday, the top story on the Warriors ESPN page was even this, a clip with 1:35, a lot like 135. If you read out 400 3-pointers, it equals 135. If you read out 134, it equals 115. And also if you write out 135, it equals 115. A number that I've talked about around the Golden State Warriors. Interesting, it's connected to their losses, though. The Golden State Warriors lost their first game of the season on 12-12 to the Milwaukee Bucks. It was 1 month and 15 days into the season. The season began on Philadelphia's 333rd anniversary. 12-12 is the day that Pennsylvania became a state 229 years ago. So once again, connecting back to the 60, connecting to the total score of the Warriors' 73-game win or whatever. Also, 2/19, the day they lost to Portland, was the 115th day of the NBA season. Anyway, let's look at this movie here. I mean, they pop it up. Not every conspiracy is a theory. I mean, they're telling you exactly what's up, but most people just don't even get it, you know? I was at the gas station the other day, and, like, my total came to exactly $10, and the kid said, "Ooh, Illuminati." And I thought, dude, you have no clue. You know what I mean? Because they make movies like this, and they make the kids think that all of this coding and whatnot is a joke, when they have no idea that it actually really does exist, whether it is the Illuminati, quote-unquote, or whatever, you know? It's just ridiculous. But they put this one-eye symbolism in here. I might be the one with the gun here, but I'm not the real criminal. You know, in the whole movie they're making him look out. He looks like the criminal, and these Wall Street guys are bad or whatever. I mean, it's obvious. A lot of people think that anyway. It's people like these guys. I'm telling you, it's rigged. The whole damn thing. Yeah, I mean, it's so ridiculous. They're stealing everything from us, and they're getting away with it too. How is that fair? I mean, talk about putting the truth right in your face. But also, one of the biggest things I noticed in this movie is that they show this little clip here, and I couldn't find it on YouTube when I kept searching the trailer. I actually had to take the picture from my TV. But look at that. They got the 923 in this movie, also connected to the 51 that we keep seeing and talking about, connected to 923. It also connected to the Cleveland Cavaliers. This 18, though, makes me wonder because that's connected to Anderson Varejao, who, you know, originally for most of his career was a Cleveland Cavalier. But if you write out the word 18 in gematria, it equals 46, just like Chicago, and also 73. The Warriors got their 73rd win. They broke the Chicago streak. And also, you know, I don't know if this is... It's just the thought that the 18 is above the 51. So is that saying they're going to win? You know, Golden State going to beat the 51? Who really knows? Just the thought. I thought that, too, about the Broncos clock in Back to the Future. They had a all-black clock right above it. And I thought maybe it meant Panthers were going to be on top of the Broncos. But just want to point that out. Also, you know, it says NASDAQ right here. NASDAQ equals 56, a number super connected to Philadelphia as well. Also, many major events that happened throughout history, you know. President equals 56. Abraham Lincoln died at the age of 56 in the year 65. He died in April, the only month that adds to 56, and Washington, D.C. that adds up to 56. Osama bin Laden, Adolf Hitler, Saddam Hussein all equal 56 in gematria. Also, Paris, France, and ISIS equal 56. The Declaration of Independence was signed in Philadelphia by 56 signers, John Hancock being the first one, and he even died at the age of 56. In regards to the 15 and 51 stuff, Obama is 15 years, 51 days younger than Trump. Pope Francis also turned 15 years old in 1951. 1915 was 101 years ago. 1951, 65 years ago. The word Philadelphia equals 101 the big way, 65 the small way. Also, if you write out Money Monster equals 176 and 59. Pope Francis equals 59 the small way in Gematria. Also interesting, we've talked a lot about Back to the Future in the 131, how it's trained 131, championship equals 131. Doc Brown goes back 131 years to January 1st, 1885. Then they use train 131 to push the DeLorean and whatnot. So I just want to point that out, that Back to the Future equals 176 and 59. Identical to Money Monster. Pope Francis equals 59. Even in the trailer, they show you this 59 in the background. FNN also equals 34. I didn't even realize that before, but 34, super connected to Pope Francis in 923. Also, November 13th, 2015, if you write that out, it equals 176. That was the day of the Paris attacks that had 59 numerology. It was on Friday the 13th. The word Jason equals 59, like the killer in Friday the 13th. Crazy. Anyway, in the movie, George Clooney plays the main character named Lee Gates. Adds up to 233 in Jewish Gematria. Just interesting because 233 is the 51st prime. If you go from September 23rd to the day this movie is supposed to come out, it's a span of 233 days. This name also sticks out to me because of the movie National Treasure. Because I believe his name is, well, I know it is after looking here, but his name in the movie is Benjamin Franklin Gates. I mean, Philadelphia, when you think of Benjamin Franklin and whatnot. But the whole point of this movie is that he's left a clue when he's a kid. The secret lies with Charlotte. Now, you know, Michael Jordan owns the Charlotte Hornets. There's been all kinds of North Carolina stuff. The Panthers are from Charlotte, North Carolina. North Carolina just lost in the college basketball championship. So, who knows? It's been a long time since I've seen this movie. Interesting, it's even 131 minutes long. Need to go back and rewatch this movie. I bet there's a whole lot of stuff in this movie. I seriously cannot stand Nicolas Cage, so I never watch any of his movies. Not after Ghost Rider, anyway. Anyway, in this Money Monster movie, George Clooney even says, "Get some balls," and they put a picture of balls up behind him. And, I mean, they don't put footballs or any other type of ball. They put a basketball. So I'm pretty sure they're telling you that it's coded to basketball, the NBA and whatnot. I'm assuming this movie is going to be like last year's Trainwreck, with lots of connections to the NBA Finals. It comes out right before. It even comes out one day after the Philadelphia Trainwreck anniversary. Also interesting, you know, the movie Trainwreck came out 66 days before, or the movie Trainwreck came out 66 days after the Philadelphia Trainwreck last year. LeBron equals 66 and whatnot. This year has been all about a lot of sixes. If you go from the day that this movie's coming out and you go to the Republican National Convention that's in Cleveland, it's a span of 66 days. Also, if you go to the Democratic National Convention, it's a span of 73 days, which just sticks out, you know, with the 73 wins. There's been a lot of 73, also 66, so. Anyway, let's talk about the Lakers game here. Obvious, right when you look at it, I mean, 101 to 96, Philadelphia equals 101. Kobe Bryant, you know, from Philadelphia originally. The Lakers even stay on 65 losses. Just as I suspected in my previous video, Philadelphia, the small way, equals 65. 17 connected to Los Angeles. If you write out the word, I'm probably getting ahead of myself, but if you write out the word 17, it equals 109 and 37. Los Angeles equals 109 and 37. Kobe even beat the Lakers this year on the 66th day of the year. They won by 17. And if I remember right, Kobe even shot 17 shots. I could be wrong on that. Kobe's 1,189th start ever, coinciding with the chapters in the King James Bible. was on Easter, which was 17 days before this game. Also, in regards to the 109, remember Kobe tore his Achilles against the Warriors. He tore his Achilles when the score was 107 to 109. The Lakers were down. Kobe magically went in there with his fake Achilles injury, and he made his 2 free throws, making the score 109 to 109, and then he went out, or whatever. I mean, how ridiculous. The tributes to Los Angeles. I've also talked about 109 in connection to earthquakes, but let's move on here. Kobe scores 60 points in this game then, his final game ever. I mean, how in the world could you not believe it's rigged? Did you watch Kobe all year? I mean, he looked awful all year, except for the last few games. You know, so they were just doing that on purpose to try to build him up to get this 60. But Abraham Lincoln in Gematria equals 60. Just like Lincoln, Nebraska. I talked a lot about all of this stuff way back in... I mean, clear back to last year, I talked about this in regards to the All-Star Week and the movie Teen Wolf, how it has Nebraska stuff in it. But also it's connected to Moses Malone, you know, former Philadelphia player. Daryl Dawkins, former Philadelphia player. Moses Malone died at the age of 60. Malone equals 60. Daryl Dawkins equals 60. Flip Saunders, we even made videos on him. Flip Saunders died at the age of 60. Tons of other stuff with that. They even played the Lakers the first game of the season, and it was a tribute to Flip Saunders. The total score was 223. Flip Saunders, born on 223, announced his cancer on the 223rd day of the year. Moses Malone, even the first player out of high school to play in the NBA or the ABA. Daryl Dawkins, the first player out of high school to play in the NBA. There was another guy drafted before him, but he was the first one to actually play. And then Kobe obviously comes out of high school straight to the NBA. Just like Kevin Garnett, who's connected to Teen Wolf and whatnot, the original Teen Wolf. Anyway, Kobe tore his Achilles 152 years exactly to the day after the Civil War began. Also, if you go from Lupercalia, the day that Antonin Scalia died, the day we had the 5.1 earthquake in Oklahoma, the date numerology even 51, Antonin Scalia equals 51 in Gematria. But anyway, it's a span of 60 days. Kobe scores 60 days after Lupercalia, the 44th day of the year. Talked a lot about the Warriors connected to the 44. Steve Kerr came back on the 44th game of the season. Earlier in the year, the Warriors were chasing the Lakers of 44 years ago, their 33-game win streak. They even had Jerry West on the team. Jerry West equals 44, and he wore number 44. But it also sticks out because they didn't get to the 33 games. They lost after winning 24 games. Kobe wears number 24. I mean, all tributes. Also, if you go from the first Amtrak wreck this year in Kansas and you go to the day that movie's coming out, Money Monster, it's a span of 60 days. And there was a whole lot of other 60 stuff that I had talked about previously. Last year I talked about how it was connected to the 55 because it was 1960 was 55 years ago. 1955 was 60 years ago. But in 2016, it's connected to the 56. Also, if you write out the word 60, it equals 34. I mean, just remember all this 34 stuff around Kobe. There's lots of 34. He couldn't even play with Shaq, remember? Shaq number 34. Shaq turned 44 years old the day the Lakers beat the Warriors on the 66th day of the year this year. And they do this type of stuff all the time in the Lakers games. But Kobe Bryant went to the free throw line when they had 33 points. He just so happens to miss his first free throw, and then he makes the second one, making sure that he got the 34th point. I mean, I've seen it in so many games. If you don't believe me, literally go back and watch these games. Kobe Bryant a lot of times scores the 34th point in every game. This game even actually at one point was 43-34. ESPN even gives us this video about Kobe's 60 points. 343, the Mirrors 34 and 43. I talked about all this stuff, winning by 17. They even mentioned Philadelphia in this game. They talk about how Joey Crawford had to retire this season as well because of his knee injury. They talk about how he's a Philadelphia native and Kobe's from Philadelphia. Just wanted to point out, Joey Crawford equals 143. So once again, that combination of the 143, if you do this as a date, it's the same as the Kansas train wreck and Steph Curry's birthday and Pi Day and all that. Also, Draymond Green equals 143. Can't remember what game it was, but he screamed in the locker room, "I am not a robot," and all that. I am not a robot equals 143. Seen a lot of 143 this year. David Blatt for the Cavs even coached 143 games before he got fired. His birthday's on May 22nd, the 143rd day of the year this year. Interesting, too. Zach has a video about possible assassination on May 23rd this year because it's the 144th day of the year. It's normally the 143rd day of the year, but it always leaves 222 days left, just like Amtrak, so lots of connections to that as well. Joey Crawford even retired on March 10th, 34 days before 4/13 when this game was played. He's also born in 1951, like I said, from Philadelphia. They even showed us this stat here. Kobe's 431st career game with 30-plus points. This, once again, the Mirror 43, or the 134 stuff. Interesting, I paused it with 4:14 left. I think he did it a little bit before, but Kobe Bryant equals 41. The Mirrors of 41 and 14. If you write out the word 14, it even equals 41. We also got this stat. Kobe's 122nd career game with 40-plus points. Pope Francis, the big way, equals 122. Golden State equals 122. Kobe even scored the 73rd point when he got this or whatever. So his 73rd point on the night the Warriors are chasing the 73 wins. And remember, Curry got his 403 when the Warriors got 73 points out of it. I also thought it was interesting that when Kobe got his 51st point, it was with a minute 45 in the fourth. Chicago, Illinois equals minute 145. Once again, all back to Chicago and the Bulls. And then, of course, Kobe Bryant equals 41 and 113. Of course, he leaves the game with 4.1 seconds left. Absolutely ridiculous, Completely planned. Can't believe people can't see it. I can't believe I didn't see it for so many years, I always thought that the NBA for sure was rigged. I didn't realize how big it actually really was. And I actually discovered that sports were rigged on baseball that I rarely watched, but I watched the playoffs in 2014 when Mike Moustakas, who sucked all year long, he hit his 4th postseason home run in the 4th inning, making the score 4-4 at exactly 4 p.m. And that's what really got me into thinking that sports were rigged. Anyway, Kobe retired with the poem Dear Basketball, identical gematria to his name. He even beat the Utah Jazz in this game, right? Utah Jazz, identical to Kobe Bryant, 113. Kobe even shot 50 shots. Utah Jazz, the small way, equals 50. So anyway, in regards to the Japanese earthquakes here, I cannot help but think that it is like some type of tribute to Kobe Bryant. Kobe Bryant tore his Achilles, and then he only played 107 games after tearing his Achilles. The word earthquake equals 107. It's also interesting because before the Super Bowl, I was talking about earthquakes happening around this time that all connected to the number 109, just like Los Angeles, because the 1906 San Francisco earthquake happened 109 years ago, and this year, the 110th anniversary will be on the 109th day of the year. And last year we even had the Nepal earthquakes. The aftershock was on the same day as the Philadelphia train wreck. The first one killed 9,000 people and injured 23,000 people. So anyway, his 107th game, earthquake equals 107. Kobe Bryant equals 41. April 14th, 414, a lot like the mirrors, 14 and 41. Like I said, 14, if you write it out, equals 41 even. Kobe's named after a Japanese beef. That's how he got his name, Kobe. This earthquake happens the day after Kobe's final game and whatnot. Even when I first looked at the story, I was at work, and then it changed after that, but the original reporting said 2 people dead, 19 houses destroyed. A lot like the 219 that I had talked about, with back-to-back championships. It's also connected to the 87 and Pope Francis, but I'm not going to get into that. Earlier I was looking at CNN, and up at the top here they have rescue crews seek survivors of second Japanese quake, at least 19 dead. So once again, they're putting the 219 in front of you. What they changed it to, though, when I had seen it, later when I got home, it said 9 people and 19 houses, which is just as much as interesting. I don't know if it's even changed as of yet, but 919 I've been talking about all year, even in regards to Nancy Reagan's death, the same day that the Warriors lost to the Lakers. This is one of the first numbers that it really stuck out to me because YouTube kept copyright striking my videos that were connected to this number. The 262nd day of the year. I talked about gay marriage being legalized, or I talked about a significant event that was going to happen on 6/26, and Obama saying Amazing Grace at Clementa Pinckney's funeral, and that was the day that gay marriage was legalized. Also interesting in regards to Kobe in the 60s, Amazing Grace equals 60. And Kobe's final game just so happens to be a span of 2 months, 13 days before 6/26, also 74 like Masonic, Jesus, whole bunch of other stuff, but 2 months, 13 days. Remember, it was 60 days after February 13th as well, the first day of Lupercalia, 2/13. There's tons of other stuff with that. He's saying Amazing Grace 9 days after 9 people were shot. 9 months and 9 days later was even 4/4, the day that the 9th president in office, the first president to die in office, died. He was also the 9th president. The last president to die in office was 9 presidents ago, JFK. Abraham Lincoln got shot on April 14th, the day of these earthquakes, the 151st anniversary, but he died 9 hours and 9 minutes after he was shot, so there's a huge connection to that. Golden State Warriors even equals 99. There's something to do with these train stations as well, these train derailments. 919 sticks out because the 20th president, James Garfield, who also adds up to 56, he died 79 days after being shot at a train station. I talked about Pope Francis being 79, Merle Haggard dying on his 79th birthday, tons of other stuff with the 79s. If you write out 79, it equals 152, just like Pennsylvania and some other stuff. But James Garfield, he died on September 19th, 9/19. It even has, if you write out September 19th, it even equals 91. Pope Francis went to Cuba on 9/19 last year. That's when he started his trip to the United States. The power went out at the World Series at 9/19. It came back on at 9/23. Interesting, too, it's connected to these 62s. This earthquake was a 6.2 magnitude. So like I said, maybe these numbers won't stay, but interesting if they do. 4/1, also normally the 91st day of the year. This year it's not because of the leap year. But I've talked about every president being assassinated. It was connected to skull and bones that equals 41, just like Kobe Bryant. In this first earthquake story, they even mention the earthquake that happened in Japan on March 11th of 2011, the worst earthquake to happen in Japan or whatever. I mean, look at the span of days. 1861, the year that the American Civil War began. Also 5 years, 1 month, 3 days. A lot like 5/13. the day that Money Monster comes out. Anyway, I'm going to end it right here. I'm going to make a whole other video about the Cleveland Cavaliers game on that same day as well. But we had another earthquake in Japan the next day. They say this was the actual earthquake, and the one on 4/14 was the foreshock. So, interesting, right away, the first little video they give you, they have a guy on the phone who sounds like he has no idea what he's talking about if you go watch the video. But he's from Golden, Colorado. Just thought that was interesting. Golden and whatnot. Golden State. Says the epicenter was in Kumamoto, Japan. That equals 151. The 51 mirrors, 1551 stuff. It also connects to the 99 that I've talked about. If you just write out Kumamoto, it equals 109 and 37, just like Los Angeles, just like 17. Back in January, I was mentioning the 109, like I said, in regards to the San Francisco earthquake in 1906, when Kobe tore his Achilles and blah, blah, blah. I talked about that. Charles Francis Richter, though, the guy who invented the Richter scale, his name equals 109 in Gematria. 58 all around earthquakes, 58 and 85 completely around earthquakes. Richter scale and all that, but gonna move on. They even show us a picture of this second earthquake. They show a derailed bullet train. Interesting, bullet train equals 134. Also 44 the small way, just like earthquake. Earthquake equals 44 the small way. That's why it's interesting that Kobe did this, shot 60 points, 60 days after the 44th day that actually connects to earthquake, even had an earthquake on that day in Oklahoma. Also, the second earthquake, which they say is the real earthquake, happened 62 days after the 44th day. The one the day before was a 6.2. Just found that kind of interesting. They even say this one, the real one, was a depth of 6.2 miles. I mean, come on, that's pretty strange. The bullet train up here, they also say it's called Kyushu whatever Shinkansen. I mean, just interesting in the name, it even has a Kansen. I'm probably pronouncing it wrong, but to me that looks like Kansen. We had the Kansas Amtrak derailment. Anyway, if you write that out instead of bullet train, it equals 219 and 66. Kobe even played his 66th game of the season on his final game. Also, I watched part of Zach's video where he talked about Moses Malone dying at the age of 60 and whatnot. And Moses Malone actually died 213 days before this Kobe Bryant game. Tons of connections to it. I talked about the first player out of high school and whatnot. But also interesting that these two earthquakes, it was a 7.0, and then the next one, or the first one was a 6.2, then a 7.0. If you add 6.2 to 7.0, it's 13.2. A lot like 213 Lupercalia, right? The first day of Lupercalia. Also 132, Antonin Scalia equals 132, the big way. He died on 213. Steve Kerr came back the same day that David Blatt of the Cleveland Cavaliers was fired. 132 days before the NBA Finals. But, yeah, I'm going to end it right here. It's pretty long, so thanks for listening. Have a great night.